What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. And these are guys that on any given night that can reach that level. They have bona fide top tier superstar ceilings, but for various reasons, including age for guys like LeBron, Steph, or Kevin Durant, or injuries for guys like Kawhi Leonard or Joel Embiid, or youth for guys like Anthony Edwards and Victor Wembanyama, these guys struggle to maintain that absolute peak level of basketball. Several of these guys used to be firmly in the top tier, including both guys recovering today. And for guys like Ant and Wemby, I'd be shocked if they weren't in that top tier at some point over the next 2 or 3 seasons. The guys that are above this group, the players that I have in 1 through 4, they are consistently night to night able to reach that level, at least the vast majority of time. And that's really the differentiator, is the consistency. And I think there's like a pretty substantial drop off from number 4 to number 5 in terms of that night to night consistency there. I actually really struggled with who to put in that 5th spot, really for that particular reason. We had a mailbag question the other day where we were talking about Tatum, and that's kind of why Tatum made so much sense in that 5 spot. He's the one guy who's like, obviously that number. He's clearly better than everyone below him, but clearly not as good as the 4 guys above him. He kind of like fits perfectly into that spot. So without any further ado, let's get started. Number 14, Joel Embiid. Last season in review, last season was just a miserable injury-riddled season for Joel. He played in just 19 games. He made 3 separate attempts to try to rejoin the team and just was not able to get his body to cooperate before the 76ers finally shut him down. And it was the right decision. He didn't look much like himself when he was on the floor. There weren't many examples of him looking like the Joel Embiid that won the MVP previously. All of his numbers and shooting metrics were down year over year. Flashed his upside every once in a while. He had a couple 30-point double-doubles. I think he had a 37-point game, but he just wasn't able to get healthy and to stay on the floor. Joel's season is actually kind of an interesting example of how this list works and how I put it together. I ranked Joel 11th last year. And as many of you guys may remember, I took a lot of shit for it, including Joel's trainer, Drew Hanlon, actually came after me for it. And here's the thing. It's no secret. Joel's not my favorite player. There are several things about his game that I'm not a fan of. But there are also several things about his game that I really like and that are super impressive and that I'm drawn to. My decision to put Joel at 11 was simply weighing the realities of his health risks. In this list, we're looking at who is the best option to have on your team from October through June. And I absolutely view Joel Embiid as a bona fide top-tier superstar when he's healthy. But I just don't think it was a safe bet for him to make it through the season. And he didn't. And we have to make the same call here. To me, Joel's upside is way too high to drop him to the next tier of guys. I think he'd be no lower than 5th on this list, maybe 6th with Tatum if his knee could hold up. He has a unique like this is one of the unique things with Joel that kind of makes him an interesting player to talk to in this context, because we talked about outplaying the top guys. Out of any of the top guys, Nikola Jokic has issues with one, and that's Joel Embiid. He's the one guy, because of his size and his ability to really kind of neutralize some of the scoring that Nikola Jokic does and kind of turn him into more of a playmaker, and his ability to attack Jokic in one-on-one situations is something that gave Jokic problems in the regular season context, obviously, but that is what makes him specifically interesting as a top-tier star. But I would argue out of this top 14 group, the top-tier superstars and the second-tier superstars, he's by far the least likely to actually make it through a season. And so he has to be down at number 14 for me. Now, for those who are not familiar with how I feel about a healthy Joel, I do want to dig into a little bit about that right here. I'd probably have a healthy version of Joel without the knee issues if he's just operating at the same level that he is when he's completely in rhythm and on the floor and night to night ready to go. I'd have him at 5 or 6, probably 6 if Jason Tatum was healthy. And so in that sense, yes, I am lower on Joel than most people at his absolute ceiling. It really comes down to his playoff shortcomings for me. And that's been a recurring theme as we've discussed some of the guys that missed the list this year and guys that are lower on this list. First of all, the defensive end. When Joel can stay near the rim, he's one of the best defenders in basketball, but he's not very matchup resilient. He has two specific issues that cause him issues. Speed, teams that can really get up and down the floor in transition. Like, I would not feel good about a healthy Sixers team against a healthy Indiana Pacers team with Tyrese Halliburton ready to go. I think they would just run him off the floor. And we saw at many points over the course of the years him really, really struggle with transition attack. He just struggles to change ends just because of his lack of foot speed. And then secondly, teams that can really force him to guard on the perimeter. So like excellent pull-up shooting teams that force him to come up to the level consistently, or teams that force him to, that kind of drag him out in switches. You guys might remember Jason Tatum in Game 7 of the, what was it, Eastern Conference semis, if I remember correctly, a couple years ago. Jason Tatum like brutalized Joel Embiid in Game 7 on switches and pick and roll, in the sense that like when he's out at the rim, he's one of the top, 5 or 6 guys that you can have in the league. But when he's out on the perimeter, he actually suddenly becomes a pretty bad defensive player. And so there's a matchup resiliency thing with him defensively. I never viewed him as nearly as good of a playoff defender as he was a regular season defender. And so that was a big part of why I had him lower. And then on offense, he just was never able to really replicate his regular season success when he got to the postseason. The refs are less willing to reward his grifts. His jump shot becomes super streaky. He was always more of a jump shooter than he was like a short range scorer. Like guys like Jokic, they use their body to get closer to the basket and they lean on hooks and floaters more than they lean on jump shots. Like you'll very rarely see Jokic take a mid-range jump shot unless he's up against the clock, right? Or if like it's dead wide open and it would break the offensive rhythm to dribble out of it. Embiid hunts those opportunities. And if they don't go in at a super high clip, it ends up neutering his efficiency when he gets into the postseason. And there was a proven way to have success against him defensively in the postseason by doubling him, specifically from behind. If you doubled him from his blind side, he consistently struggled with it. For his career, he has 18 more turnovers than assists in the postseason. That was another consistent issue that would come up. So like, I viewed Embiid as a top tier superstar, but I viewed him as at the bottom of that top tier because of those limitations when he got to the postseason. All of that said, I truly hope that Joel Embiid gets healthy this year and that he's able to make another run at the title. The East is wide open. Obviously, if Paul George can get healthy, there's still a decent amount of talent on that roster. And he's capable of being the best player in that conference. And I'd argue a healthy Sixers team is actually a better roster than a healthy Bucks team. And so there's some potential there if all the stars align for this to come together for a moment of redemption for Joel Embiid. I saw the article about how bad his knee was, and I do truly feel awful for him. Like, I don't wish that on anybody. I hope he can get right, and I hope that we can watch Joel play in some big playoff games again this year. But in the meantime, I think 14 is the appropriate spot for him on this list.